Now today we've got a masterclass from one of the directors of Shaka iLembe.
Sekunjalo.
Bezintaba kuyohlala kungokwami.
One of the greatest shows to come out of South Africa. And he's telling everything. He's explaining what they did, how they did it. And he's got vast experience with many different shows all around the country. He's worked for Bomb Productions, worked on shows like Yizo Yizo, Shaka, and many other amazing shows that Bomb Productions has produced and worked on in this country. He's one of the directors in that company. And welcome to the For This Reason podcast, Adze Ugah.
There is no ego in the storytelling process. It's not about I'm the boss, I'm the producer, I'm the director. It's about what is the best story.
But there's always this conversation that people say, what makes the difference? And I think it always starts off with saying, when people look at Hollywood and look at South Africa, I think the truth might be in that preparation, but I want to hear it from you. What is that difference?
It is preparation. Preparation is, for me, 70% of the work. When you get to set, it's execution. And preparation is largely research.
I don't know how to put it in words, but many of the directors try and tell stories that don't hit home, or that tend to be a bit too fabricated.
Passion for storytelling. The Bomb team, Desiree and Angus, always look for people who are equally passionate with the idea of telling stories. My personal approach is...
Hey, about 80% of you that watch this podcast are not subscribed to it. This is really disappointing as we try and make sure that we bring you the best podcast, the best guests, the best insights. Do me one favor for today. Please ensure that you subscribe to this podcast. It helps the team, the many people that are behind it, feel encouraged and understand that the work that they're doing is impactful. So go on and click on the subscribe button and subscribe to this podcast. Firstly, congratulations. Shaka iLembe has taken South Africa, Africa, and the world by storm. And you being one of the directors is really a big achievement. How did it feel winning that SAFTA award for all that hard work?
It felt good. Weirdly enough, when we went into making Shaka, we were not really thinking about awards. Like, everybody on the team was just thinking about telling the best story possible and using their capabilities to just output what they believe was a story that South Africa deserved. And when the issue of the SAFTAs came up, we kind of felt awkward about it because we're like, it kind of goes without saying that Shaka might likely win, but what does that say, But I think for us, it's a validation that, yes, the good work paid off. And also that a bar has been set, that everybody who is in the storytelling space can aspire towards to also meet and also even exceed. And I made a comment, during the SAFTAs when we came up to receive the awards. I said, well, for us, this is not about competition. This is about complementation. To say that if this can be done, it can be done again. And if that is the case, then all of us win at the end.
Wow. I mean, the numbers I heard from Shaka iLembe were really scary. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I heard the crew, the cast, the terms of the magnitude of it. Can you take us through some of those numbers?
See, the reason why I am a filmmaker is because I'm very bad at mathematics. But it's safe to say that the numbers were large. We had a crew of easily 150 people, a minimum on the day. That's just the crew. In terms of the cast, that's another issue. I remember looking at the cast list, from the schedule, and it went almost to 300 in terms of speaking parts. So I'm like, wow. And then that's not even including the extras, the backgrounds that had to be on set all the time. We're looking about thousands.
Sure.
Thousands by the time the total figure was computed. And these are people who, as far as we are concerned, we see on set. There are also a group of crew members that are not on set, they're not visible.
Yeah.
The post-production team, the team that goes about
styling.
The styling. The styling guys are mostly on set. But the sources, those who go and buy things, that need to be used. Those who have to create and design. There's a lot that happens,
Sure.
even behind the scenes,
yeah.
and that just makes the number large.
Did the numbers ever come out in terms of how much MultiChoice spent, or was that always?
I think I'm not too sure, and I don't know if because those sort of figures are normally the domain of the channel. They're the ones who are supposed to be transparent in terms of how much was spent.
And in terms of records, was it the most amount of people in a production that Africa's ever hosted, or even the world?
You know what? I don't think it's possible. It's most likely it was. But let me say this. Don't forget, around the same time we were shooting our Shaka for MultiChoice, Showtime was shooting also a Shaka series in South Africa for an American channel.
I was not aware of this.
Wow. This was happening literally like at the same time we were shooting. They were shooting in KZN, and then eventually they moved to Cape Town, and it was an American project. We know that they had billions because we saw what they brought.
But it's not yet out yet.
No, it's been cancelled. That Shaka is not going to.
What?
Because I think they saw our Shaka and decided to just stop.
And I think that's the amazing part about America versus South Africa, that they've got enough money to give directors to explore, to be creative, and cancel it without ruining everybody's lives, but cancel it as, we'll just do something else.
Yes. I mean, look, everybody who worked on it from South Africa got paid well. That one we know, they got paid well, and the cast, those who were cast for parts, they also got paid well. But we don't know what kind of internal politics or economic decisions that they make based on what they are creating. All we know is that, at some point, we just heard that Shaka was not going to see the light of day. The company has decided to scrap it. And we're like, okay, no problem. I mean, we didn't have an issue. We felt kind of heartbroken because ours was, like I said, not to dominate the storytelling space. Ours was to kind of say, we need to be in a space as a country, as a continent, where stories are being told almost every day, even about the same thing. Doesn't really matter. As long as people can work and earn a livelihood, then, like I said, all of us win. But when a project fails, it sets a bad precedence that failure is a possibility. We want to see more wins. It doesn't have to be from the Shaka iLembe team only. There were other shows that MultiChoice also pumped a lot of money into, like Blood Psalms. It came before Shaka. Also kind of like a magic realism, historical kind of epic. And you can watch it on Showmax. I know that they also had a big budget. They also had a big crew. So in terms of the numbers, whether Shaka iLembe is the most expensive show that MultiChoice or DSTV have paid for, they have to be the ones to confirm that. Yeah.
Take me through a day. I mean, you've got a big crew. You're shooting in the wilderness, and you're directing. I mean, that must have been quite stressful. What did a day look like on set?
So the funny thing is that, as the Bomb Shelter, we've been producing shows that we felt or we feel, the continent deserves. And everything that Bomb puts its hand onto to work on always raises the bar. We always explore new terrain with everything we produce, whether it's Isibaya, Jacob's Cross, all of our shows, we tend to explore new grounds with that. And, Bomb has been in operation for 25 plus years, from the Yizo Yizo days, everything. And interestingly, when we began Shaka, we realized that, wait, everything that we've been doing since, we've been making TV for Africa and South Africa has been preparing us for Shaka. We're learning the lessons, learning the rules, learning the good habits. It's been preparing us. So when it was time to start Shaka, it didn't feel like it was a different space. It was like, oh, this is what we've been doing. We're just doing it in a bigger scale. we're just doing with more money and more time. But it's basically what we've been doing all our lives as the bomb shelter. So a day would start with us arriving on set. And of course, our sets are out there, in, like you said, the wilderness. And they had to be built, with certain parameters in mind, because you just don't find land and then just say, oh, just build these huts here and then that's it. There are technical considerations to every single choice of everything you see on those sets. It may not look so obvious, but one of the reasons why Shaka looks the way it does and everybody goes, oh my God, you guys had magical tricks up your sleeves. It was because all the choices for every single set was technically thought of to serve story and to serve the aesthetics. All of this was done way before we started shooting, So we had like 4 or 5 sets built all around the area, around the cradle of humankind, and I remember we spent weeks, months scouting that place. Like we'll go there and drive for even 5 hours, looking for spots, looking for areas, looking for things, because we needed to recreate, 1870 or 1800s, 1700s in Johannesburg, and that was KZN. So you can imagine the nuance that felt, oh, this is the place. So getting to set, we had done a lot of the homework already. A lot of the homework had been done. We had done tests, with our cameras, with our characters, seeing what they would look like, in the wardrobe. Way before we even started shooting, they would come to the office and then we'll test them out with things and then take pictures. We had tons of pictures of what our characters would look like and what we liked and what we didn't like.
Sure.
Way before we started shooting, we had.
So the preparation was
was rigorous. The casting, even when we got to the point where we needed to not audition, but to kind of confirm the actors, right? We had to bring them in to see whether they would work with each other, and then they had to be in the wardrobe. So there were wardrobe auditions, and if their hairs, and if you came to audition and you had a tattoo, we had to cover the tattoo up. We didn't just say, okay, when we get to set, we'll cover the tattoo. We'll cover the tattoo, do it now, see what it looks like, put the stools, put everything and go, okay, this works, this doesn't work. So by the time we got to set, there was not a lot of guessing to be done. We were very sure of what we were doing.
Execution of a high level because you already understood.
We already understood the terrain we were dealing with. So we were not thumb-sucking choices. We knew where we wanted to shoot every single thing. We knew how we wanted to shoot, how many people we could use. Sometimes the scenes might take longer because of, it's an emotional thing in terms of acting. And that you have to look for what works. And that might take longer, than what you imagine. But generally the process was not too much of experimenting. We kind of knew what we were doing already.
I mean, as an experienced director, you've experienced and you've directed lots of successful South African shows as well as some Nigerian shows as well. But there's always this conversation that people say, what makes the difference? And I think it always starts off with saying, when people look at Nollywood and they look at South Africa, they sort of say, well, South African actors or South African, but I think the truth might be in that preparation, but I want to hear it from you. Yeah. What is that difference?
It is preparation. Look, preparation is, for me, 70% of the work. When you get to set, it's execution. And preparation is largely research. If I want to tell a story about your life...
Ooh, that was a gem there. Preparation is largely research.
Yes, it is research. And research that gives me granular context of what it is I'm dealing with or who it is I'm dealing with. So I'm not researching, desktop research where I've got my browser open and I see 1 or 2 articles and I read and I go, okay, that's enough. I want to be able to know what the smell of that character was like. So if I can find somebody that closely comes to the character that we're trying to portray, I'll find that person. We'll sit down with that person. We'll see what they eat. We'll see how they live. We'll spend time with them. We'll go where they sleep. We'll see who they love, and then some of the things that they do are things that we can actually use because those things are real. They are not things that we are fabricating. And when you, the audience, see those things, you can relate because that's you.
Because that's real, yes.
Yeah, it's you too, you know. So you go, okay, I'm here, you know. So it's not superficial. It's not.
Would you say that's the problem with some of the stuff we see coming out of Africa, that there's no preparation? It's just, hey, act. And
there's a presumption, right, that because we're creating, we can create things out of the sky and out of the air. That's not always true. You know, a creative person is inspired by something that he has seen or he has heard or something he has experienced. And to recreate that, you need all kinds of things that actually take that thought and make it tangible for the audience to engage with. So when you think about all of those details, it's detail. It is fundamentally detail, and you can only get detail from research. I always say to people that some of you, when I tell you to write a story right now, you write a story, and when I read it, I'm like, there's so much missing. But then when I ask you to tell me a dream you had, your dream will have so much detail. But I'm like, okay, but that was a dream. You had that dream. Why can't you have the same detail in the story that you write? You know? And they go, that's true. I say, of course. You know? Because that when you're dreaming, you're watching a movie, for lack of a better word, you know? And that is why it makes an impression on you. You always say, that dream felt so real. And that's what we want the audience to feel when they're watching something from BOM.
I mean, for many of the upcoming directors, the young people that are writing films, that are releasing things, they look at you and they think, wow, these guys have really made it. They look at BOM and say, wow, these guys have really made it. But a lot of them give up on the point of they write the story, they go through the rewrites, they start, they shoot, they edit. And through that very long process, they give up because of so many issues, right?
Yeah.
I wanna understand, how do you protect that vision from start till the end? To say, from the moment you're inspired to the day when you're now on set and you're tired or you've got issues at home, how do you ensure that vision, that thought that you bring to life, it comes till the end?
So that's a very beautiful question. My personal approach is I attach the idea to my life, to the point that I will say, if this idea dies, then I may as well just die with it. And that is how intense I personally get when I get an idea for a story. And especially if the story is, I think the story is a good story. What I do is, I always tell people that, yes, it's good to have the money to shoot, but if you don't have the idea right, the idea will never attract the money to make that idea happen. And sometimes some ideas are not ready. You know, they need time. And you need to vegetate over them for as long as you can. You know, exploring the various ways what you are writing can exist in better ways. And you do that constantly. Even when you think the idea is ready, it's not ready. As long as there's time, as long as there's a tomorrow and you're not shooting that story, there's still room for it to improve. And that will happen. Even in edit, you'll discover that you're changing things. The only time a story is ever truly finished is when the audience are watching it on screen. That's the thing. So you're never supposed to stop polishing till it. That's the way stories are told. Don't stop the polish. You can. The ideas that, like I was saying earlier, the Shaka story has been in development for years. People say, they began shooting in 2022. The official, let's say, formalization of putting things together began like 6 years before 2022. But before those 6 years, our executive director, producer, Angus Gibson, had been working on Shaka 20 years before. 20 years before.
The vision had been brewing.
Yes. And in terms of how it should be made, what it should be made, and notes being kept, you know, so that when it looked like, there's resources to meet the ambition, it was easy.
Oh, that was powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, you're saying so much, and I think it's hitting home so much, because what we see in this upcoming generation, we see a popcorn economy where, you know, they just want to switch on the camera, shoot, release, and expect it to go viral.
Yeah.
and you're really emphasizing to say, no, there must be that passion, that vision for you to be able to put it forth. I mean, looking at the fact that you've lived a very dynamic and interesting career, because you've made it big on what is called television.
Yeah.
And you've worked on one of the biggest, or in one of, I would say it's the best production company in Africa. I don't know
Thank you.
if I'm allowed to, but I'd say Bomb Productions has really done very well.
We receive it.
But I've got two questions. I think the first one is, what has been the secret of Bomb Production? Because whatever we see from Bomb, from Yizo Yizo days up until now, even when we go to award ceremonies, I mean, I attended the SAFTAs, and it seemed like we just came to watch, Bomb Productions, because you guys won writing, best screen, best. So what do you believe has been the secret or the glue that has really held it to be that excellent?
I want to say, I think I've alluded to that question in a previous answer, but I'll re-emphasize it again. The passion to tell stories is what drives Bomb. And not just
how do they piece that together to get the team there?
So let me try and answer that. So the passion to tell the story, number one, and to tell it in a way that is substantial, not just a chappy or bubblegum way, but you want it to be meaningful. So we live in a society that is equally dynamic, and things are changing, and we have issues. We really have issues in Africa, socioeconomic issues. So when you're telling a story, you have a responsibility not to distract people from the issue, but to try and get people to understand how and why they're going through what they're going through and how to deal with it in whatever way they can. And our stories are kind of programmed towards that. Like when you see how we prepare for our stories, we ask ourselves why. The why for any particular idea that goes out to a channel for consideration, the why is very important. It's not just to entertain. If we can't find something meaningful to hang on to, we won't do it. I remember when we were working on Red Ink, we were about to start working on Red Ink, and Red Ink is a book by Angela McCullough, and she was commissioned to produce some episodes for Showmax, and Bomb was brought in to assist. And if you know the story of Red Ink, it's a true story basically about this reporter, journalist in South Africa that had not like, loving romantic relationship, but she had a relationship with a serial killer, a real serial killer who had killed like close to 40 people. That's the ones that we know of. And he's serving a life sentence in Pretoria prison. So she had this correspondence with him whereby, he was telling her the story, and she wrote a book based on that experience. And, this is South Africa, and GBV is a big issue. And we were all asking ourselves, do we really want to tell this story about this serial killer in this society right now? Is this what South Africa needs? I mean, it's there, and the issue is that we can say no, we can say yes. And our executive producer, Desiree McGrath, said, well, she wants to know, first and foremost, who wants to tell this story or who's interested in it. So she's given us the choice to decide whether we want to be part of it or not. And I struggled. Personally, I struggled. I'm like, I don't like serial killers. The idea of a serial killer revolts me. Why do I want to tell this story? And it was about finding a way to tell this story because it mattered in a way that will not glamorize the serial killer, that would unpack the things that are meaningful to the average South African. Whether you're a male or you're a female, whether you're a mother, a father, a son, what does this issue do to our psyche, individually and collectively? So the next answer to your question is that as much as there is a passion for storytelling, the Bomb team, Desiree and Angus, always look for people who are equally passionate with the idea of telling stories. So it's the sincerity of the story you want to tell. So that is how the team is. So the team that's brought in or that works on any project has to be a team that's not working because, they've got bills to pay. But the core team is about what are you saying about this issue? What is your take? And why is that important? So understanding that means that when you come into the story, you're not just somebody who's pushing buttons. You are contributing your own impression. And the way life also has kind of like worked on you to that story. So that's the other thing. So the bomb team is a team of very, very critical, creative people who question not just themselves, but they question their colleagues too. And that is allowed, you know. And we do have like a beacon in terms of the direction we're going, but everybody's take is entertained. And then the ones that add value are taken. And when you meet the bomb team, you know, it's a very collaborative team. When I say very collaborative, like there is no ego in the storytelling process. It's not about I'm the boss, I'm the producer, I'm the director. It's about what is the best story and who adds value to that story by either their cinematography, their directing, their music, their editing, you know, their makeup, their wardrobe, who adds value to that. And that is, for lack of a better word, part of the bomb secret, which of course it's not really a secret because everybody knows that's how we work.
Yeah.
And the rest is just research.
I think that's so profound because whenever I think of bomb, I always think of Yizo Yizo. And now I think of Yizo Yizo and then I think of Shaka iLembe as well. And when I think of Yizo Yizo, I think of, I don't know how to put it in words, but many of the directors try and tell stories that don't hit home or that tend to be a bit too fabricated. Whereas when I look at Yizo Yizo and I remember specific scenes of the guy in the gusheshe trying to impress the lady and you know, everything was so real that it stuck, you know. And then I look at Shaka iLembe and it's the same sort of reality that sort of linger around there. I want to know your take because there's a lot of creatives now that sort of they want to do this new way of telling stories where in the first scene there's a helicopter, in the second scene there's a boat, and then there's a helicopter on top of the boat, and now the crocodile, and now there's and you're just watching this and it's just you know, a casino of the mind.
Blame Hollywood because Hollywood glamorizes this storytelling space to the point that we feel it's all about the lights, camera, and action. You know, but like I was saying earlier on, we are in Africa and we're dealing with real issues. You know, and a helicopter might be cool to see, but it won't solve your problem today, you know?
And I also think, I mean, just looking at Tyler Perry, I mean, Tyler Perry released, you know, a couple of shows on Netflix, and all of them did very well. The story that he told, and now the new one that he did as well. But I'm starting to sort of see the side of maybe the reason why the shows do well that are not helicopter and flying in the sky is because they're actually telling the story. They've researched the reality.
Look, you know, I can tell you this, Tyler Perry is telling the story of his mother in every single film that he makes. He had his mother made an incredible impression on him while he was growing up. He had father issues, massive father issues, and his mother was there. And they grew up struggling, and he attributes where he is right now to his mother. And when he's telling a story, he's channeling his mother and all the women in that ecosystem that kind of informed and influenced how he grew up. So he honors them with these stories. And because he draws from their experiences, the stories are true. They're tangible. They're relatable. So when you watch it, you know, most people actually dismiss Tyler Perry and go, oh, you know, why this man just likes glamorizing black trauma. Yeah. And he's like, and I know, I hear the argument, but for me, it's like he is what he's doing is he is making us know people. He's making us know black people. He's making us know black women, because until you know somebody, you will never care about them.
That's powerful.
And that is what Tyler has been doing with his stories. That's what we at BOM also work towards. We want you to know. And therefore you would care. And when you care, whatever happens to me, good or bad, you are invested. You will go in that journey along with me.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I once heard something so profound where somebody speaks of the fact that the best way to communicate is through a picture, right? And they take it to the point where, you know, they sort of say the brain understands pictures. And whenever I watch something versus when I read something, yes, when I read something, it's good. I'll remember the picture that the book told me, but I won't remember the words exactly. Yeah. But I want to just delve a little bit into this, because a lot of creators would say, how do you get that picture right? How do you bring it to life, you know? and the sound and the lighting and the color grading and all these technical words. For you, how do we get that picture right?
Look, so let me start with saying things about how I work. If I receive a script, right, and it's a scene between two people talking, and there's an issue that's been discussed, right? The conversation with the actors is, okay, we're looking at this scene and this is what's happening in the scene. The actors have read the scene, they know what the scene is about too. But then we kind of go deeper to go, okay, what's the real issue here? And essentially what I do is I mine for truth. I start digging for what are the truths in these conversations, because yes, there are words being spoken, but maybe not all these words need to be spoken, because we're all human beings, right? And so the first thing I discover that helps me in telling a story is I have to be in tune with my humanity first. And then the actors too also have to be in tune with their humanity, because we can't come there and pretend. We can't come there and glamorize things. Let us dig deep into our souls and find out whether what we are doing in this scene actually contains even an iota of truth. Because if there is truth in the scene, I'm telling you, my brother, if there is truth in the scene and the actors understand that, everybody who sees that scene will also recognize it. Oof. That really is just the thing. And the truth...
Why is that? Because we all know the truth.
Yes,
externally.
We do. And it's not something we face every day. That's the problem. You know, somebody made a comment that the reason why romantic comedies and love films, right, always are successful is because the audience watch it because they're watching what they don't have, which is nice romantic relationships. So that's why rom-coms are so successful, because people want to have a nice romantic relationship. It's the same thing with the truth. Not all of us actually have it in our lives. So that's why when we see it, we respond to it. That's actually at the core of it, that it's not something we, like our parents are not honest with us, our spouses and our partners are not honest with us, our employers are not honest with us, our politicians are not honest with us.
So you'll dig in the scene up until that truth hits.
Until the truth is like, yeah.
And then you'll say,
and then you don't even have to act it. The actors, they just be it, and it just hits you, and you go there. And the things that when you're directing, I see it, but my script supervisor sees it, the DOP sees it, the people who are in the crew also see it, the actors feel it, and we're like, do we need to do anything? So you're not wasting time doing gimmicks. You know, you're not saying, oh, let's put the camera here and let's put the camera there, because it's about us. You know, so and that's what you want to celebrate us. You celebrate us by giving them the opportunity to be truthful on screen.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you recently won an award for your own project.
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about that. What was that all about?
So that's a good case in point, because that was a story that I have been working on for close to like maybe 11 years. You know, and when I say I've been working on it for 11 years, I had the idea quite randomly while I was sitting in the toilet, and I had a bad meal and I was reacting to it. My stomach was giving me a really bad time. And I'm like, what is this? You know, why am I always going through this? And then in my mind, I was like, nothing good can come out of having this bad stomach problem with, with eating food. And then that was the beginning of a thought. I'm like, there's a story here. And that's also one thing, be honest with yourself about what inspires and triggers your thinking about what you want to explore. Most people, like I said, like you said, we're looking for the helicopters and the stuff. No, just everyday life in itself presents us with opportunities for wonderful explorations. So that's how it started. And then I began telling people, like, what if this would happen with, just playing with the idea. And then I'm a person who, whenever I get an idea, I'm not afraid of people stealing it. Because, their ideas are like, fruits on a tree. The person that plucks it owns it, because they exist, that sort of thing. So I'll say, look, I have this idea and this is what I'm thinking. Then people will go, okay, this is okay, but that's not all right. So I was bouncing this idea off people for a long time. And then right up till, I think, 2020, then I started putting some things down. So when I felt, okay, I've got this idea worked out, and yes, then I put it together in a script. And I was fortunate enough to be approached by somebody who was able to raise some money, and the money is not much. So let me give you a simple strategy about how I'm okay saying this because this I think will be helpful to so many people. So the money we had was not much, and therefore I knew that I would not need much money to make the film. I needed just like maybe 4 or 5 actors, and I needed one location. And of course, knowing that money was not much, it meant that I needed to find smart ways of saving on equipment. So this is what we did. We said we will only shoot on weekends. Only on weekends. Number one, everybody will be available. And if I could pay you, I'm paying you outside your normal way of earning. You know what I mean? So I'm not substituting your normal income. I'm not saying leave that job and come and work for me. It's extra. So if it's extra, that means that if I give you what I have, you will say yes, which is the situation. So that was that approach. Now, shooting on weekends, this is how we did it. So we'll hire equipment out on Friday, right? And the equipment was to be used Friday and Saturday for the shoot. Now, the production houses that rent out equipment are closed on Sundays. They don't open on Sundays. So they tell you bring the equipment back on Monday. So for 2 days, I could shoot for 3 days.
Yeah.
3 days.
Wow.
So I shot Friday or Saturday and Sunday. And Monday, the equipment went back. And then the next weekend, we did the same thing.
Wow.
And luckily for us, because we had chosen to be in one place, right? We knew everybody knew where they were going to be the next weekend. So, and we had chosen the house, and the person who lived in the house was fine. No, yeah, So it was contained, and it was easy to execute. All we had to do was be creative with the story. And unfortunately enough, the story was dynamic enough because it was exploring value. About a woman questioning her value, and through the eyes of her boyfriend and through the eyes of other men who thought she had something else to offer. But it's quite metaphorical and quite it's comedic, dark humor. It's called Sierra's Gold, and fortunately for me and the team, it won the best South African film at the Durban International Film Festival last year, and it's won about 8 other international awards.
Wow.
Yeah, since then.
Wow.
Yeah, so like I said, it's not about having the money. It's really about get your story right. Question why the story. Interrogate it. Don't think because it came from you it will smell good. No. No. Always make sure that you double check your BS, for lack of a better word. Yeah.
Wow. No, this is phenomenal. I mean, you've really done well. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Moving forward, what does the future look like for you? What are the future plans? What are you working on?
I would I just want to keep on telling stories, and the stories that I have been considering in my head, I hope that, as I keep on, doing what I spoke about, I'll be able to attract the resources. Shaka iLembe season 3 is on the cards. Literally, we'll hope to start shooting that very soon. So we're in preparation for that. So we hope, we end with a big bang, for in terms of the season. So that's going to be happening for the next half of the year to possibly the beginning of next year. I did a film, my very first South African feature film, which is one of my favorites, to be honest. It's a film called Gog Helen. And if you were born in 2000, you will not know Gog Helen. But when Gog Helen came out, it was crazy. It was like one of those, like I still get people telling me across the continent that that's one of their favorite films ever. The film never went to cinema. It ended up, on multi-choice, DSTV, Africa Magic, and Mzansi Magic, but it was one of those beautiful, raw, crude projects. And a dream come true for me would be to be able to make the sequel. I want to be able to make the part 2 of that. Not because I just want to, make a part 2, but there's another story that extends the part 1 that I feel needs to be told. So that for me those are, for my future is those 2 things. Shaka iLembe season 3 and being able to shoot Gog Helen part 2.
Wow. No, you've done so well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Maybe in closing, I mean, for the young people that are looking up to you all around the continent, what would your message of inspiration be to them?
You know, I know it's a tough time to be alive, to be honest, especially for young creatives. You know, things have changed. You know, things really have changed, for good and for bad. They have access to, you know, when we were telling stories when we began, when Yizo Yizo was being made and all the other projects in those early years, you know, there was no internet like there is right now. You know, your phones are not mini computers. You know, like then people did the work.
Yeah.
Research was go to the library and then look for stuff and then photocopy, staple, and then, you know, write,
Yeah.
type. It was harder in those days, but people still told great stories. Nowadays, the information is at your fingertips. You know, with AI now, you don't even have to struggle. We're not saying AI should replace you, but it should be a tool for how you work. And it's about taking advantage of all of those things to build yourself, to arm yourself with the capacity to tell stories. I always say that the number one thing you need to be able to tell any story is courage. You've got to be courageous to be truthful about that story. Don't censor yourself. Don't edit yourself. If this is what this issue is doing for you, try and bring that out in its rawness. And, you know, because that's your perspective, you know, and nobody else has that. And that means your idea will be 100%, you know, how shall I say, sincere, which is what we want. And then take the steps. Don't like you were saying, don't look for the popcorn approach. You have got to soak up as much as you can about your humanity. In the taxi, in the toilet, like I told you about the story that I wrote based on my experience in the toilet. Wherever you are, just try and learn something every day about the world that you live in. You know, don't judge the world that you live in. Try to understand it. You know, try to walk in the shoes of others. Because you won't be telling only your story, you know what I mean? Know what it feels like to be a single mother. You know, not just, there's a girl that's our neighbor that's a single mother. No. Do it like Tyler Perry. You know, walk in the shoes of others, you know, and just soak up as much as you can. Watch a lot of films, good films. Watch a lot of good films. Read a lot of good books. Like read it. Those that's actually what you need. And then while you're doing all of that, write your own stuff. And you can shoot it with your cell phone. You can edit with your phone these days, you know. Put your stuff out there. Let people know who you are. Because if they don't know who you are, like I said earlier on, they will not care. So let your stories reflect who you are. And that's the thing, many of us want to be, you know, want to be hidden. We don't want controversy. We don't want to be ruffling feathers. And then life will just silently pass us by. So courage, that's why the courage is the most important thing in the beginning. And then, take a chance and then just be truthful. Yeah, I think that's I hope that inspires somebody.
No, definitely. That was phenomenal. Thank you so much for coming.
No, thank you, Mpho. I really appreciate you having me. I really appreciate this. Thank you. And nobody should miss Shaka iLembe season 2.
Definitely.
Ooh, I know. If you thought you knew something,
Definitely.
if you thought season 1 was good,
Sure.
be
We're
prepared
in for a treat.
for a roller coaster ride of emotions.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That season 2 rocks.
Wow. Thank you.
No, thank
you so much.